October 18th. We're blessed to have Andi Cook, the Crown Straightener, as our speaker today. She's going to be talking about a job search strategy, and I'll let her give additional introductions. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. I am so excited to be here. This is the second time I was scheduled to be here, and last time I had a medical emergency, and Tracy was so kind and gracious about it. And so thank you for that. Excited to be here and healthy and well and talk about job search strategy. I have a background in education. When I was an educator, I was on the behavior teams and I loved everything about my job except for the pay. And so when I left education, it was to pursue financial freedom. And I always say I kind of crash landed into recruiting. I took a short contract and my recruiter said, "Hey, I just see something in you. I think you should try this recruiting thing." And I tried it and it just made sense. And little did I know it would launch my career in a totally different direction than I ever saw it going. Fast forward to 2020, I got impacted by a COVID-19 layoff, as so many recruiters did. And that led me to starting my own company, writing resumes, helping with LinkedIn, job search strategy, interview coaching, and all things job search and leadership development. You may have heard me announce earlier in the day, while I will still be continuing coaching on a part time basis, I just got a really great opportunity that I'll be starting next week. And I'll be the director of customer service at a company located up in Allen. And so, the reason I want to talk about that landing specifically is how organic it happened. And when you are looking for opportunities, there's multiple ways that you can find those opportunities and multiple ways that you could experience a landing. I want you to think about your goal of landing. Um, in an ideal world, if you would put in the chat for me, how many months would you expect your job search to go? So, in this many months or days, I need to have a job in order to sustain my family. Put that in the chat for me. Let me give it a second. And I want you guys to be interactive. The more interactive we are, the more we get out of this. And so, yeah, type in the chat. How long do you need before you need to land a job? I see 6 months, great time frame, because the average job search when using some of the methods we're talking about is about 45 days. And so that's just kind of a standard. There's some difference when you're at the executive level versus when you're at an entry level and mid level. There's some differences, but okay, I see a lot of 3 months. That's a pretty standard time frame. Um, okay, so then we're going to back into this. If we know, oh, that's a very specific date, Kelly. 12, 21, 23. Okay, so we're like by this day, which is so great because that's a very targeted prayer. And you can very specifically focus your intention on that. And it is a reasonable time frame. You're looking closer to a 60-day search. Um, so let's think about that. If I know I need to land a job in 60, 90, 120 days, whatever that looks like, then I need to decide how much time do I have to allocate to my job search. And whether that's I'm not working now, so I have 40 hours in the week to dedicate to this, or I'm working full time. I have a very busy life. I only have about 10 hours. And you can make a job search work for you, but the speed in which that you go is going to be really important. And I'm going to just throw an image up on the screen. I'm not going to do a full presentation today, but I do want you guys to see a thing that I have. So give me just a second. So I created this graphic based on some data and research that I've done and pulling together a lot of industry tools. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, what are you seeing on it?
Chance for hire.
Perfect. That's what I want you to see. Teams is a little different than Zoom on this. So I just want to make sure that I have you guys right where we want to be. So perfect. So when you look at your chance for hire, if I'm allocating my budget of time, I'm going to look at the highest chance for hire, right? So if I know that I have a 1 in 200 to 300 chance, so a fraction of a percent for hire on an online application, which I believe in online applications. I have clients land through them every single day. But if I know that's my lowest chance for hire, I can say, okay, I'm only going to spend an hour a week on that, right? And I'm going to develop a strategy where I find those jobs using Google. So this is a little bit different than what a lot of people will teach you, but I want you to take your job search to Google. So you're going to type in like sales director positions near me, right? Sales director jobs near me, or sales manager jobs near me in Google. The first section will be a job search platform where it's an aggregate search, meaning it's pulling from multiple sources. It's going to pull from LinkedIn. It's going to pull from ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and you're going to see that in the job section. But there is another thing I want you to do with that Google result, and that's scroll down past the job section into the individual website results. And when you get used to, it was like on page 3, now you just have to kind of keep scrolling, but you're going to look for company websites. And so look for something that says like careers.microsoft.com or jobs.intuit.com. It's going to have the word careers or jobs in the URL. And you're going to start to see positions posted with major companies that may not be advertised anywhere else. Because when you think about a company that's big like Google, Microsoft, your same kind of companies, they have limited resources to post positions, right? So they're not going to pay to promote 250 roles. They're going to pay to promote their top 25 or top 30. And then the others are going to be listed on their website. We want to get you access to the ones that they're just listing on their website. And you can do that with a simple Google search. All of the corporate websites are indexed, so you can easily, with the right search terms, find those roles and play around. If they're calling it sales director, sales manager, play around with that. Regional sales director, territory manager, you can get creative with those terminologies. So that's option 1, right? That's going to give you access to online jobs. When you find a job that you're interested in, the next step I want you to take is to go to LinkedIn and type in the company name. Okay. And when you type in the company name, you're going to change your search results to people and look at your first and second degree connections that work there. So our goal is to identify people that somebody could introduce us to. And there are some strategies for connecting if you don't have mutual connections. So if you're familiar with LinkedIn, then first degree connections are like me and Tracy are connected first degree. We've had interactions together. We know each other at this point, at least as much as social media allows us to, right? But we're connected first degree. Gary is probably connected to Tracy. So now Gary and I are second degree connection because we have somebody in common. And then when Gary uses my LinkedIn URL that I put in the chat to connect with me, now we're first degree connections, and his connections become my second degree connections. So the more people you connect with, the larger your network and your space of influence goes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take our search to Google. Second thing we're going to do is when we find an opportunity listed on Google, we're going to take that to LinkedIn. And the reason why is because as you look at your opportunities or your chance for hire on that image that's on the screen, think about, okay, I want to apply online because they're going to require me to, but I really want that networking. Because if I'm working with an external recruiter, an agency like Matrix or Tech Systems or Robert Half, Thomas Edwards Group, some of my favorites, if I'm working with them, my chance for hire goes to 1 in 6. Guys, that's a huge jump from 1 in 200 to 1 in 6. Huge jump. And then if I go with an internal recruiter, I get connected with somebody in the hiring process on site at that company. Now my chances for hire are 1 in 4. And then if I have somebody who, like, I find an opportunity and Tracy knows the hiring manager and she can walk my resume over to that hiring manager or send a specific note, like advocating on my behalf, my chance for hire now goes to 1 in 2. So if I'm allocating that time budget on where am I going to spend my most valuable resource, my non-renewable resources, my time. If I'm going to spend that, where do I spend that time? And I'm going to spend it on the best ROI, which is I will spend the most time networking and building relationships. And then I will spend the least amount of time applying online, but I'm doing all of these. I'm applying online. I'm working with recruiters, internal and external. I'm sending my resume out to every person that I have contact with and asking them to let me know if they hear of opportunities. And when you think about that network of people, I'll stop share. But when you think about the network of people, guys, it's everyone in your circle of influence. It's your neighbor, it's your parents' friends, your friends' parents, your third cousin's nephew's dog walker. It's like you get to get in front of people and get creative, right? Don't violate a non-compete. So if you have, especially those of you who are in sales and business development, oftentimes you have a non-compete clause. Make sure you don't violate that. But look at past clients, past connections. If you built a really great relationship with an account manager who's moved on to a different company, they're fair game, right? If you look at vendors that you built relationships with, if you were an expert on a software, look at the jobs that software company has. These are going to give you those internal connections. And then when you're tailoring your resume, if I have strong workday experience, right, in HR, I'm going to make sure that's all over my resume, and I'm going to apply for a job at Workday because I'm a subject matter expert. I now could go in as a customer success professional. I could go in as a project manager, an implementation specialist. I now have expanded my reach because I've gotten creative with my job search. So far, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Any questions? I kind of want to pause and make sure that I give space for specific questions related to time allocation and kind of the numbers behind those ways that we land jobs. And I have a 3-month-old grandbaby at home, so pardon the energy drink, but that's how we live these days. And so,
Any questions? Does that surprise anyone? The statistics? I know we say network and don't spend all the time on the computer, but it's so easy sometimes when you think you need to be at the computer, you think you need to be applying. Sometimes that's the route we take, and
right.
this is a good wake up image to statistics to tell us we got to get out and have that coffee and be on the phone and do the things that we need to do to be talking to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me do this. We have plenty of time, so I'm going to pull up a Google page and I'll demonstrate how I find jobs on Google. Would that help?
Sure.
Okay. All right, let me share my screen again. All right. So when I look at a Google search, I'll just go down here in my search bar and type in recruiter manager jobs near me and hit enter. Okay, so the first thing, remember I said, like you've got the, I pay less attention. Like I don't really use Indeed and Career Builder a whole lot anymore as a recruiter. But if I look here, like there's this whole section of jobs, GM Financial. These are pulling, and it'll tell you exactly where it's pulling from. So this is coming out of LinkedIn. It's coming out of this one's LinkedIn. This one is via their website, ZipRecruiter. So you can kind of see all of that. And when you look at some of these, like this is BB. I don't really know that site enough to say I would apply on there. So what I would do, if I was interested in a chef manager job, which Anyway, at Aramark, I would go to Aramark's website and see if I could find this job if I don't see a site that I'm comfortable with. Then you've got talent.com. But my first option would be to apply directly on their website. So I would want City of Fort Worth. My second option would be LinkedIn. My third option would be a job board. So, and I can say location. So I can say I'm willing to travel 30 or 60 miles. If you're like me, I live south of Fort Worth, and I knew when I went into the workforce that I would drive probably to Dallas, and I do. In the new position, I'll be going to Allen twice a week. And so you can set whatever is comfortable for you, or you can say work from home. You can sort it by date posted, job type, whether it's full time or contract. And then once you get all of this set how you want it, you can set a job alert where it will email you this. I think you can say weekly, daily, and so you can look at that. And then going back to our search results, remember how I said you want to go down to, we're still in all these sponsored ads, right? I'm going to click more results. And it's a little bit time consuming, but at the same time, remember, we're going to set a timer and we're going to say, okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on this, right? And we're going to get creative with how we do this. Indeed is like taking over Google, just is what I'm seeing right here. Okay, so now it took me going down here, but I see there's an HR, like this is Amazon.jobs. That's going to be a specific job at Amazon. Meta. These are going to be, so now we're starting to get into Capital One careers, Google careers. You're still going to have some things woven in there, but you're going to start to see specific companies. And again, these may be opportunities that aren't posted anywhere else. So definitely just take a look at them. And, if you do this once a week or once every other week to see what new jobs are posted, you still have a good strategy to come back and develop a good, I'm reaching out to companies and constantly growing my network and looking at new opportunities. So okay, Rashawn, I really like your comment here in the chat where it said you knew the numbers favored a connection, but didn't think it was that much of a difference. When I started recruiting and realized how drastically it impacted your search to have a connection, it really started to transform the way I coached people. And again, I have people land every day with online applications. I'll use the example last night, my sister and I did her resume, and she's kind of casually looking for an opportunity, and she's highly qualified. She's been at the same company for 20 years, and she's just kind of seeing what else is out there. And when I first saw her resume, I said, this doesn't tell anything about really what you do. It kind of looks thrown together. It's not polished. Let's go back to the drawing board. And we revamped it last night, like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. She applied for a role, and by 10 o'clock this morning, I had a text saying they were phone screening her. This came from an online application. So definitely, I've seen it work. But the difference is she was applying for a job that she was highly qualified for. She would have been in the top probably 15% of possible candidates. She met everything that they asked for. So that's where your applicant tracking systems work really well. But when you get into where other opportunities come from, we were talking in our last call that Tracy and I were on together. Nigel told a story where, if you know Foster Williams, he introduced me and Nigel. I invited Nigel onto a podcast that I do. She was co-guest with one of our other experts who then turned around and hired her to do some consulting work, like that kind of networking. She didn't know the person she went to work for, so it wasn't a direct connection, but Foster introduced me to her. I liked her. I introduced her to the world because I liked her. And because when she showed up, she was authentic. She let her skills and expertise shine. And she stayed in the realm of what she was so good at. And it really spoke on her behalf. When I look at how I landed this opportunity, it's very similar, guys. It was an organic, Christ led conversation. And that's the best way I can describe it because it is a faith based organization, or what they say, a kingdom minded organization. where their heart is really to bring in people that that share their culture and their vision for how they treat people and how they value growth and development. But it happened with a conversation about, hey, can you come in on a consulting basis and do some training for us? And I'm like, absolutely. And through that conversation became, hey, let's interview you for the manager role for customer success. And after 6 hours of interviews on Monday, they came back and said, actually, we want to hire you as a director. And here we want to pay you this much more than what you asked for. And so, guys, this is where my faith is so important to me, and I believe that we get put in the right places at the right times. And it's the past experiences that I've had that have prepared me for this. And it actually started with me taking a step back in salary to become a pastor at Life Church for a year and a half. And the skills I learned there and the resources I learned and how to set up systems and how to develop people and how to have great conversations, those are the skills they're hiring me for now. But it took this season of growth and development that I had to get ready to become who I was supposed to be. And so I would say, be very open to opportunities. This opportunity does not look like what I thought I would take if I was going back to the workforce. And it's out of my comfort zone, and it requires me to step out in faith and become really dependent on learning and growing and tackling challenges and stepping out of that comfort zone further and further. But I believe it's right where I'm called to be and right where I'm supposed to be. And so that's my other, when I look at job search strategy, I look at, what were you created to do? When you can define that purpose of, at the end of the day, what makes you feel fulfilled? Mary Kay Ash always taught us that if you find something you love so much you would do it for free, somebody will pay you well to do it. And that has kind of guided my career as you're looking at the end of the day, what makes me feel fulfilled. For me, it's developing people. And I thrive, whether it was in education, recruiting. I don't think you can get more personal than people's livelihoods. So I still had that intrinsic reward. But at the end of the day, it's building and developing leaders. And I would say, find your niche, find your, what makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. Um, it's Eric Thomas, I believe, teaches, what keeps you up at night is your stressors, but what wakes you up in the morning is your passion. And when you think about, are you applying for jobs just based on what you know how to do, or are you applying for a job based on your passion? And I think when you can operate in that space, when you can operate inside of your calling and your giftings, and you can build your whole strategy around that, the right opportunities will come. And this is where we separate it out a little bit. Am I a specialist or a generalist? And companies used to hire generalists, meaning you could come in, cross train, do everything. You're kind of a one woman, one man show. That's how they used to hire. Now they hire more specialists. I'm a specialist in this industry, this software, this trade, this specific unique skill, and I'm like the best of the best on this one area. That's how companies hire now. Oftentimes, when we present ourselves to companies, we throw everything we can do at them and it overwhelms them, and they begin to see us as generalists. This is true for large organizations, mature organizations, even mid-sized companies have really moved into the specialist model. But when you have a startup or a really small company, they still need everybody to wear multiple hats. When I was on staff at the church, guys, there were 8 of us who met the needs of 3,000 weekly attenders. That's a lot of wearing multiple hats. That means you jump in wherever you're needed because there's always a need. And whether that's planning Fall Fest or a women's conference, ignore my dog, I'm so sorry. But whether that's Fall Fest or a women's conference or stopping to go to do a hospital visit, you learn to wear all the hats. In small companies, it's that way. Whether you're troubleshooting a technical system, whether you are doing what you are hired to do, or whether you're learning and growing. And when you start to look at opportunities to grow, means that you're going to use that skill later and it will develop you, then it becomes worth it, right? So it's the difference on, is a small company best for you or is a larger company best for you? Um, and so I think just getting creative with that strategy to know how do we align it with your core values, and then developing your search strategy from there. And what we've kind of talked through today is first, start with Google. See what opportunities are available. Next, see who you're connected with in those opportunities. Um, and I want to back up just a little bit. There is one step I want you to do before you ever take your search to Google, and that's getting your resume in the hands of people that you know. So, anyone you're connected with, if you have an open job search, meaning not confidential, then you would start reaching out to everybody that you're connected with. Hey, I've recently updated my resume. If you hear of any opportunities that would be a good fit for me, will you please just let me know about those? Right? Casual conversation, not salesy, not uncomfortable, just reaching out. And even if you're somebody like if Tracy and I went to high school together, right? And we didn't, but if we did, and I hadn't talked to her since high school, I would still respond if she said, "Hey, I'm recently in the market. If you just hear of anything, would love to catch up with you sometime, but just casually, if you hear of anything, will you let me know?" I'm not going to be like, "Whatever, we haven't talked in 20 years." It's not going to be like that. It's going to be absolutely, if I hear anything, let me know. What are you looking for? I'm going to ask some follow up questions. You're not bothering people. So the worst thing they could say is no. But I always go into it with this mindset. If I'm stepping out on a limb, like if I'm applying for a job, I already right now don't have that job. So I can't get any more not having the job than I am right now. I only have something to gain here, right? I could get an interview. It's not mine right now, so I don't have to worry about losing it. I only have something to gain here. If you're reaching out to someone and it feels uncomfortable, you only have something to gain, right? You start with, "Hey, I don't have this right now." If I ask, I only have something to gain. And we look at who you know opens doors that nothing else can open, and what you know allows you to walk through those doors. Okay. So, who you know opens doors nothing else can open for you. What you know allows you to walk through those doors. All right. Um, so when I look at strategy, I do start first with internal network. I was shocked when I recently did a candidate experience survey, and the results showed less than, well, right at half. I think it was 56% of people use their internal network when they're job searching. Most people start with online applications because that's what's advertised. It's what was out there. There's these opportunities, and it feels like, well, they're looking for someone. I am someone. I'm looking for a job. It should be really simple, right? It's just not. And unfortunately, the technology has made it a little bit more complicated to get through that system. So now we're going back to let's operate outside of the system. What happens if you interview a hiring manager and say, "Hey, I I saw an opportunity and I would love to connect with you. I think I could make an impact here." Right? Because we're impact solutions oriented. And if I reach out to you and I say, "Hey, Rashawn, like I saw you have this opportunity. I think I can make an impact here. Would you be open to a conversation?" He's not, or they're not going to be offended, right? And so I want you to really focus on how do I navigate this with confidence that I'm worthy of people's time. I'm worthy of asking for their time. I'm not bothering them, and I can get creative with who I reach out to. I can find people on LinkedIn, use that as a resource and a tool. I can ask Gary to introduce me to somebody that he knows. Hey, I saw that you were connected to so and so. Would you mind making that introduction? Right? Super simple. So I want you to kind of take the stress out of the job search and let things happen organically. That's our goal for me. It's always how do we get organic conversations to happen? So we're going to use our network first. So we replaced number one, we pushed it down just a little bit. That's really our first line of defense because it's where our ROI is. We have a 1 in 2 chance there. Second, we're going to look at jobs on Google. Third, we're going to see who we're connected with at those companies and reach out if we have a connection. We're going to apply online. Most of the time, if I reach out to somebody who works in a company, they're going to say, "Go ahead and apply online and then let me know about the opportunity or whatever, or let me know that you applied, and then they'll pass it on from there. So a lot of times they want you to take that step anyway. Go ahead and network in. And our last call, Nigel was telling a story how she got rejected for an opportunity and then reached out to the hiring manager through email, got an interview from the hiring manager, but online she was rejected. I've also had clients that they applied online. We redid their resume. They first time they got rejected. The second time they got the job. So don't just say, oh, I got auto rejected, it's over from there. If it's something you truly feel passionate about, pursue it outside of the ATS. Find people that are connected. Send them. You can research and find the hiring manager, email them, reach out to them on LinkedIn, connect with them, connect with recruiters. There's a lot of ways we can be strategic there.
Andi, we had a question. I'm sorry, there was a
yeah.
question on applying on the company website versus LinkedIn. Do you have a preference?
I do. I prefer company websites first. It puts you automatically into their database, and so it can help you navigate conversations. You also have the option, if you haven't heard anything back, like in a day or two, then you could go in and apply on LinkedIn as well. It's not going to be a deal breaker. But I always choose company website first, LinkedIn second, and then a site like Indeed would be my third choice.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. In the research that I've done, about 98% of recruiters are. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, another question for Nat.
It's a quick question regarding the hiring manager. How could to get in contact with the hiring manager of the company you never work with?
Yeah, so if you look at here, I'll open LinkedIn and share that. That way we can kind of look at it together. Okay, so if I'm looking in LinkedIn, my computer's going to run slow, but bear with me. Maybe. Essentially, when that's label search, and I'll show you how to do that and kind of how to tell if somebody's open to connecting with people outside of their network. We can look at how many network connections they have and tell. We'll see, it's lagging. I'll stop sharing and then see if I can load it, and then I'll reshare. But essentially, using LinkedIn is a really great tool to get connected with people that you didn't know before. You can research the hiring manager. You can go to the company and look at every company page has a people tab, and you can look and see what people work there, and is it the department. Think about the title of who would hire you to do the job, and then you can search for people who have that title. Perfect. And my computer's lagging, so we may or may not get to demo LinkedIn. We'll see how it goes. We roll with the punches.
I don't know if it's helpful if I share and you can tell me
absolutely.
What to do. Do you want me to try to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Let me see about doing that here. Just a second. Okay, so we'll see if I can do that. Here. Okay, but go ahead and here we go. Okay, so can y'all see the LinkedIn?
Yes. Okay. So let's just pick a company. Venance, what is a company name that you would like to work for?
Okay. Let's say Texas Instruments. Let's choose Texas Instruments.
Okay, perfect. Tracy, what I want you to do is type in Texas Instruments and recruiter.
Maybe.
Yeah, so type in Texas Instruments and then the word and then recruiter. Perfect. And then just hit enter. And then across the top are some tabs. See where it says people? Click on that. And let's filter it by first and second degree connections. But right now you're seeing some second degree connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would always want to know if I had a first degree connection, because that's going to be my first line of defense. But if you would click on Maria Angelica's name. So it looks like Maria goes by Leah. So if I were reaching out to her, I would want to know that. And then scroll down. Let's look at how many connections Maria has. So she has about 100 or 1,300 followers. Probably she's open to exploring relationships outside of people she knows directly. And I would either reach out to her and say, hey, we share some mutual connections, or I might reach out to Meg Sullivan and say, hey, Meg, I noticed you're connected to Leah Marco. Would you mind introducing me to her? Okay. You can do the same thing with any job title. So this would be, a director of whatever department, or again, go back to the title of the person that would hire you, and you can do that same thing. So type in the company name, the word and then the job title of the person.
Yeah. Okay. So like, do you want me to try something else? Oh,
absolutely. Vanessa, what job titles are you looking for?
Okay, let's say I don't know, hardware test engineer.
Okay. So she just did software developer, but you could do the same thing with any job title.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So hardware engineer, this may help you identify peers, which can be a good thing. It could help you look at where people have gone from a specific. So the current is senior hardware systems design engineer at TI. So you could look at that. You can see the profiles of other people that have been hired into that role to see what their background was and how it compares to yours. You can even reach out to Mr. Mike McCormick there, who your second degree connection with, and say, hey, would you be open to scheduling an informational interview where I could just ask you some questions about Texas Instruments? Right. So there's several ways you could reach out and get connected with that team, depending on, but then you could look at like directors, or even, I always hesitate in large companies like Texas Instruments to go for the C-suite. There's too many layers of red tape. But look at like director and around there. Director titles are usually kind of a safe bet. But always go one step above you. So if you were applying for a director role, you might reach out to a CIO or a CTO.
thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, but what about if nobody is trying to reply to your request and you still want to contact the hiring manager? Because you may also have a job maybe you are interested in and trying to apply, but at the same time, when the job require a cover letter and you need to address the cover letter to the hiring manager and you can have the hiring manager name, how can you handle that?
So one thing I would tell you is most hiring managers never see your cover letter unless you're specifically emailing them directly. So you can always address it to Dear Hiring Team. So one, take that pressure off of yourself. But I think you can still reach out. If you're not hearing back, I use a follow-up schedule that on day one, I send like a connection request or a thank you note or whatever. Then I follow up on days 3, 5, 7, and 14. Okay. So on day 3, I'm going to say something like, hey, wanted to move this to the top of your inbox, would love to connect with you. On day 5 or 7, if it's a cold reach out, I may wait until day 7, right? But if it's a warm reach out, meaning you had a connection in, I would go 5 and 7. But I would say around day 5 or 7, you could say something along the lines of, hey, Vanessa, I know you're busy, and just wanted to circle back again and see if there's any other information I could provide you. And then on day 14, I might say something like, hey, I wanted to follow up one last time to see if there was any interest in a conversation. I'll move on in my job search, but please know that I'm still interested in this opportunity. Should your time be open up or something like that. Okay. So use a casual approach where you're not being really aggressive or coming across impatient, but at the same time, keeping it on the forefront of their mind, and remind them why you think you would be a good fit. How would you make an impact? And there's a number that has come out recently that applicant tracking systems and hiring teams, so these would be your recruiters, are looking for you to be about a 94% match for jobs. This is compared to what pre-COVID was 80%. Now companies want you to be a 94% match. Okay, so if you're looking, your resume has to tell the story of how you are a 94% match for that job. And if it doesn't, then there may be additional information you need to add to that. Going back to the example of my sister, she had given me a very generic resume and felt like, man, I have the certification. That's going to tell them what I do. She would have never made it through the system with that because the person who screens her resume may not know offhand what that person does. And so we had to get very detailed with the specifics of what she does on a day-to-day basis. So make sure your resume tells your story before you apply, and you want it to be about a 94% match. Okay, good.
Yeah, and there's also ChatGPT or JobScan websites that you can use to put the resume and your job description in there, and it will tell you to what extent there is a match.
Absolutely. ChatGPT is such a powerful tool, guys. There's a video out on my LinkedIn page where I demo how I recommend using ChatGPT in your job search and to help with your resume. Feel free to go in and watch that video because there are really a lot of prompts that you can use from tailor this resume, copy paste, to this job description, copy paste, and look at the suggestions. Now, here's my caveat. I never just take what ChatGPT says, throw it on paper, and send it. I always want to use that as kind of a suggestion source where I can start building my communication from there. But great resource, and it's free. And free is my favorite.
So how long would an average, like if you see a position you really like, and you know you need to customize your resume and a cover letter, what would be on average the time that it would take someone to do that?
So I think we go overboard sometimes in our trying to put everything on. So think about what words would you want to hear to hire somebody in your role, and then you can develop your strategy from there. I use a section at the top, and out on andicook.com, there's some resume samples on how I do this, but I use a section at the top that's called core competencies and achievements. That's the part I recommend that you tailor. I want you spending 15 minutes or less tailoring a resume, unless you have, so like for the position that I interviewed for, I spent about 15 minutes tailoring my resume for it because I had a direct connection. I knew exactly what they were looking for. And during the conversation, it really was centered around training. And I thought, okay, does my resume really showcase my training abilities? Okay, it doesn't. Let me go in and add the places that I know I've done training and I can speak to that. It's not just me throwing additional training words on there, but really talking about where have I developed curriculum? How have I delivered it? What technology tools did I use? And making sure that it spoke to those specifics. But about 15 minutes or less, you should be able to just tell that story based on the job description.
Thanks.
Sure.
Are there other questions from the group? Okay. Well, I know there's more, and I didn't want to interrupt you, or I know there's more you have to share as well.
No, you're good. Yeah, please ask.
What are your thoughts on multiple levels of interviews, especially past like 2 stages of interviews? Do you think that's kind of like they're kind of wasting your time at that point? They're trying to weed you out, obviously, but like, what are your thoughts on multiple levels in general?
I think it depends on the company culture. And here's why I say that. Because I spent 6 hours on Monday interviewing for the role that I'm starting this coming Monday, right? I met both of the owners. But the dynamic of that team was that they have these, 5, now 6 people that are part of a steering committee that they want buy-in from. So in respect of the culture, I don't think their intent was to waste my time. I think their intent was to really look at, I don't think they were trying to screen me out. They were trying to screen me in. They were saying, I think this is what I know about you, but I want to make sure that I'm seeing it from the full perspective. So one of the owners who leads operations looks at it operationally. One of the owners who leads HR and compliance looks at it from their lens. And so sometimes it's just getting multiple perspectives. I think there's that piece of it. I've seen people go 7 and 8 rounds of interviews and not get the job, and it is devastating because you've invested so much of your time and resources. I would say when I interviewed at Life Church, it was the longest, most intensive process I've ever seen. Um, and I couldn't even tell you how many rounds of interviews I did at that to get that job. So I've seen it work multiple ways. And I think you have to navigate how you're feeling. Does it feel like they're trying to screen you out? Are you meeting different people, or are they bringing you back for the same people over and over? Are they asking new questions? Are they giving a different perspective? Kind of evaluate the culture of the team and the company, and then make a decision on whether you feel like it is a good use of your time. Also, are you truly interested in this role, or is it just an opportunity that's come available? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I've been in some of these interviews where it's like 3, 4 interviews, and I'm just like, feel like we're just repeating ourselves constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that at some point you can, ask the question of, hey guys, I'm really hoping to make a decision about my future in the next week. Can you help me understand how many more interviews will be in the process, or what do next steps look like? I think you can do that without showing the level of frustration that it would be so natural to feel. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
That was a good one.
So Andi, and if without any other questions, what other suggestions do you have in terms of the networking? And
Absolutely.
that's where we want to be focused. Obviously, we all have different levels of connections and different
Right.
people and different groups, but where do you find the highest impact to go?
I think always have conversations, right? I am not naturally an extroverted person at all. And I was sharing in the last call that I am like the poster child for introverts. I need silence to recharge. I don't naturally gravitate in a room. Even at family gatherings, I like sit at the table and I have this countdown. And usually I'll look at my sister, I'm like 10, and she knows that means I'm about 10 people in this room away from having to leave. And so I naturally am not super social, but I have had to train myself to step out of my comfort zone and always have new organic conversations. You never know where they're going to lead. I've had multiple people clients who landed opportunities or were pivoting, and it just happened through an organic conversation. One, him and his wife were out on a date with a person and their spouse, and through the course of conversation, they shared, things are a little bit stressful at work. We're looking for this role, and the person that was pivoting said, "Hey, I would be interested in that," and within 2 weeks was hired. So I think there's ways that always have those organic conversations. You don't want everything to be about work, but as you're asking how things are going for people, for most of the professional workforce, if you ask how things are going, the conversation will drift to work. Or when they ask you how it's going, things are going really great. I am currently looking for a job, and that's a little stressful, but I'm hopeful that the right opportunity will come. If you plant seeds like that, if people know of opportunities, they're going to come back and tell you. So plant those seeds. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I am a Virgo through and through. That I'm fiercely independent, and I am the person who carries all the groceries in, and like my arms are falling off, but I'm not going to make multiple trips. I'm that person. And so I think my natural instinct is to circle the wagons and get very intrinsic and very internal when I'm facing something like a job search or financial stress or frustrations, and where I've learned to be a little bit more vulnerable to share not all the details of my life, but to say, hey, I am in the market for a new opportunity. Please let me know if you hear of anything. I've learned that is actually not as painful as I thought it was going to be. And so I do think always have organic conversations. You never know where that's going to stem from. Attend networking events, attend groups that specialize in your area. So go out to careersdfw.com. There is a whole schedule of networking events and meetups, and some of them are virtual, some of them are in person, like South Lake Focus. What was that? Careers DFW? Is it .org?
I think so. I'm double check, but yeah.
Yeah. It may be org. And I think it's
I put it in there.
Okay, is it Career DFW or
Career DFW.org?
Okay. I mess up their website a lot, and I should get better at this. But there's a networking meetup that happens once a month called Meet the Recruiter that meets over in Dallas, where there's all kinds of agency recruiters there with a list of positions they're hiring for. Look for opportunities like that. That can be a great place to get some face time with people. And then going back to what we shared with Nigel's story, always be your authentic self. Take opportunities to show your level of experience in a natural, comfortable way, and give yourself permission to have a voice at the table that you sit at. And oftentimes we talk ourselves out of speaking up or asking questions when really those can be opportunities to showcase how we would be a good fit in the organization. What took this role that I am starting from manager to director was me speaking up during the executive call and challenging a strategy that they were going to do. And they really liked that I was willing to step up and voice a concern or bring that to the table. So I think that's another thing, is give yourself permission to have a voice and to have the conversations, to provide value and resources. Another way I really, really like to network is through volunteer opportunities. It's one of my favorite. I volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. There are people that I meet at build days I would have never encountered in any other environment. I volunteer at Union Gospels. Like they have not a soup kitchen, but like a food line that they serve the homeless community. I work alongside people I wouldn't network with otherwise. I am very active in my church community and meet people through there. I meet people through networking events and groups. When I started my business in 2020, I think I had about 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. And since 2020, it's like 14,700, something like that. And it's constantly meeting people and making the habit that when I meet you, I connect with you. So that way we continue. Now, do I know everybody on my LinkedIn? Absolutely not. I get connections every single day from people that I never have met. Are there a lot of people? There's probably 3,000 people on there who just connected with me to sell me something, right? Where there's other people who connected to follow something. They're there to get something, not give something. But there are other people I've connected with that when I am in the market, I could reach out and say, hey, I've had 3 opportunities in my life that started with a conversation on LinkedIn that I circled back to and ended in a job opportunity. Okay.
Great.
I love that. What's that volunteer opportunity, Tracy?
Well, it's just the network of community ministries, and obviously we have lots of opportunities here at church as well. But
love it.
I do think volunteering is a great way to give back. At the same time, you're feeling useful. That's one of the things in a job search that's hard, is that we don't feel like we're using all of our skills. and it
So
can be
good.
draining sitting in front of a computer. So when you feel like you're being useful and you're connecting with others, you're blessed that way as
Absolutely.
well. So.
Love
Well,
that.
Andi, this has been fabulous. We really appreciate all your wonderful knowledge
you.
and your willingness to share, and congratulations. I hesitated whether to share this on email or not, but we've had 7 job seekers in the last week. Sorry, I guess like 10 days now that have landed positions. And
Love
so it's really exciting. And I never want anyone to feel like, why them, not me. But it's just, I think, a testament to knowing that people really are hiring, and we all have different paths. We don't know kind of what that looks like for us, but there's definitely a lot of hiring that is happening and a lot of movement that's going, and just know that day will come as well for each of you, and we our prayers are continually with you, and just feel free to reach out if there's anything more we can do. But definitely connect with Andi on LinkedIn as well, and just thank you for all you do, and we wish you your best.
Thank you so much.
What's
Okay. Oh,
what's
one last
her
question.
name on LinkedIn? Her name on LinkedIn. Your
Um,
profile, LinkedIn
Yeah,
profile.
so if you go to her website, Andi, my email that I sent you has her LinkedIn. If you click on her name,
Okay.
it goes directly to her LinkedIn. If you have trouble,
Perfect.
you
got
can
it.
reach me. Okay,
Okay.
sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Y'all have a
All
great,
right.
great afternoon. Take
You
care.
too. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.